Welcome everybody to our webinar today, Building a Business Case for Budgeting and Forecasting. We've had a great response and interest to the webinar today, so we hope you can take away a number of learns to assist you in your own organisation. Just want to quickly highlight that we have actually had a change of presenter. We were originally had advertised Dennis Della Costa to be presenting alongside myself today, but I'll be joined by Chris Cato, who I will be introducing shortly. Just a little bit of admin. If you would like to ask questions throughout, please do so. We'd love to hear from you. We will dedicate some time at the end. So in your control panel for the GoToWebinar, you'll find a section where you could ask questions. We'll be recording this, so you'll be able to watch it at a later date or forward it on. My name's Rebecca Gatehouse. I've been working with organisations, helping them improve processes via the application of technology for over 12 years. And a bit of a passion of mine has been around planning processes. So by that I mean budgeting and forecasting, helping organisations improve those processes for better outcomes for their organisation. And I welcome Chris. Hi, Chris.
Hello, everybody.
Chris brings vast experience in this field to the session today. He's both run his own company, he's been the CEO of organisations, and he's helped organisations one-on-one improve all types of areas of their business, but he's got a particular focus around planning and budgeting and forecasting. So we'll hear more from Chris throughout the session. So what we're going to do is Chris and I are going to work through this in more of an interactive conversational way. He's going to pass on his insight into how to build your business case, what considerations there are, and then I'm going to, filtrate the session with some tips and learns that I've seen organisations do really well to get business cases through for their planning technology and other considerations as well. So I just wanted to introduce you to yourselves as well. On webinars, you've got no, insight into who else is on the webinar with you. So we had over 80 different people registered today, which is really exciting. And you're all from a very vast cross-section of industries. So very different kinds of organisations, predominantly from the finance function, looking at all the roles of different people, but also there's some good representation from IT and their operational side of organisations. So in the agenda, as we promised in the invite that you would have responded to, we've got cover off a little bit about why organisations automate their budgets and forecasts, and then Chris is going to take us through considerations for the business case, and then there's some time for questions at the end. We are going to run a couple of poll questions as well, just to make it a bit more interactive for the audience today, and also to give some insight back to you guys, some insights about what some of your peers that are on the webinar today are going through. So they'll only take a couple of seconds each time. There are a number of people on the webinar today that aren't customers already of Professional Advantage, so I just wanted to take just a couple of seconds to introduce PA, which is what we're more commonly known as, to you as well, so you've got just a little tiny bit of background. So we're in our 30th year, which is pretty exciting for a privately owned Australian company, and we do a broad range of solutions around different business requirements. So everything from financial management, ERP, customer engagement, and workplace innovation. But obviously, the focus of today is our area of PA that focuses around the intelligence of a business, and that's where we have our planning business. So around budgeting, forecasting, modelling and reporting, and then our analytics, our visualisations, our, more traditionally known as BI. So before I hand over to Chris, who's eagerly waiting to jump on in, I wanted to cover off why organisations that we work with automate. And typically they're automating away from a manual platform such as Excel. And over the 12 plus years I've been having conversations with different organisations, the reasonings behind wanting to make that move sort of fall into four buckets, which I've called speed, agility, participation and basis. So speed is an obvious one, and I'm sure given that you're all on the webinar today, You're very acutely aware of the improvements you'd want to make if you automated. But speed's all about just being able to, it taking too long. So just wanting to fulfill the budgeting and forecasting process in a more efficient, quicker way. The agility side is the want to be more agile with your planning. So if there's some planning the organisation wants to do or the board wants to do that's outside the way it's currently structured, then it can be quite difficult and time consuming. So being able to do things like what if scenarios quickly, or to just quickly look at what would happen if we restructured, those kinds of things, that requires a bit of agility. With participation, not so much about any, I guess, political or cultural issues around participation, but not being able to get as many people as you'd like to participate involved just because it's in Excel and it's too hard to share that round in a user-friendly, safe way. And basis is around just the organisation's confidence about the data, the drivers, those kinds of elements that are used to do the planning. So they're I guess the frustrations and the ways people want to improve by automating their budgeting and forecasting. But I guess what Chris and I are keen to promote today and highlight today is sort of turning that on its head and really drive a business case around automating to be innovative. And look, a lot of the people on the call are from finance, and finance obviously, driving projects that aren't just about automating budgets and forecasts, but providing innovation to the business. So if we turn our let's automate budgeting and forecasting around on its head a little bit and think instead about driving some innovation across the business. So rather than getting a budgeting forecasting tool, we want to get a tool that provides business insights and direct focus, a tool that helps teams, is driver-based, helps accountability and recognition, and also around the business leaders and enhancing analytical capability, essentially just providing a tool that's more strategic for the organisation. And I'm going to hand over to Chris in just a wee moment, but a bit of an insight to one of our customers at North Queensland Bulk Ports. They certainly started an initiative around swapping out the spreadsheets so they could improve speed and agility and participation and basis, absolutely. But what they also delivered was, a strategic tool that provided the board and the senior management the ability to do 10-year planning and rolling forecasts, which is innovation for them and allows them to plan the way they want to plan. All right, Chris, I've been talking
Thanks, Rebecca. Yeah, it's been great. So now, in creating the business case, and this is where we step into how we can actually frame our business case, a couple of key elements that you'll need to address, and you can't avoid it, is the cost of internal time, which will always be a potential objection and something which needs to be addressed, and also that actually this is an investment in automation. So the fact that it's an investment in automation means that the cost of internal time is actually negated. In effect, there's more benefits than there are in the initial cost of internal time investment. Now, to move on to the next slide, what we recommend you do, frame the business case around these 5 key elements here. And what you do is you research these 5 key elements to understand exactly how you can distill your key points to position your business case appropriately to move forward. So firstly, it's who needs to be involved in this, who's going to be benefiting from the business case and invest in innovative planning tools. Who's it going to have a positive effect on? And it's potentially the people who are spending a lot of time on spreadsheets, who are finding errors and in their own spreadsheets, or maybe manipulating spreadsheets on the side. Then they have to transfer that information and could potentially make mistakes. Who are these people who potentially have a lot of stress points and could benefit from a tool which streamlines the process and has a centralized assumption, which obviously they can contribute to, that enables their working life to be better. So who are these people that can actually benefit from this tool? And clearly from that, who are the decision makers and influencers and so on, that you can get in to help you champion this tool. Then it's, well, why are we actually doing this? What do we plan to actually achieve, or what do we plan to actually achieve from implementing this tool? So in that respect, it's establishing business intelligence, predictive analytics, all those things which help people make better decisions. Drill down functionality, rich graphical representation of costs, actuals versus budgets, and drill down functionality, as I've already mentioned. So all these tools, and which potentially is not available now, potentially is quite manual in its process, and that you are going to help them actually, when I say them, the business, deliver and give them better decision-making tools. Then why is basically what problem are we solving? So we're creating this tool, we're importing this tool. When I say import, we're going to implement this tool, which in effect helps us allocate resources and helps us make better decisions and gives us better decision-making capability. So you need to research and ask yourself these questions and ask the users these questions in regards to framing the overall business case. Now, the fourth item is the objections. Now, no matter what area you're in, whether it's a CapEx of any kind, there's always going to be somebody with some objections. So make sure that we understand the objections and we ring fence the objections and we have ready-made logical answers to any of the objections. And lastly, what's the net benefit? How do we quantify the benefit of this investment? And how can we show that over time that the benefit from this investment is going to be well and truly above the initial costs?
Oh, and I would say back to that slide, we commonly see the who not done first, but both Chris and I think it's pretty important to understand the who, the people that you need or should be involved with it, so that you can effectively frame your what and your why. So we are going to run a poll now, a quick poll question. We can see the poll, the questions up there going through. So when will you be starting your business case around budgeting and forecasting? We'll be starting it in the next 6 months, or you're actively doing the business case to start a project, or we're just really attending this session to learn. So we're getting some responses from that at the moment. And it looks like there's a bit of an even split. Most of the people are actually here to learn, which is fantastic, which is why we run the sessions. And there's a bit of an even split then between people either actively or looking to do their session. Thank you for participating in that. So we are going to, for those organisations that are either actively doing their business case or they are looking to do it soon.
So what we're going to do now is, as Rebecca mentioned, we're just going to drill down a little bit more detail about those elements. So in terms of who, clearly who's going to be involved in the approval process, and then who benefits. So remembering or keeping in mind that this tool is in effect a tool which helps you deliver your strategy. It's a central tool which helps you manage and allocate resources and define and make decisions about resource allocation to deliver the strategy for the business. Because ultimately, in delivering the strategy for your business, you need, or your organisation, you need to allocate the resources appropriately and use and optimise those resources effectively. So who are the resource users and resource allocators within the business that can potentially benefit from this tool? So whether it's schedulers, procurement people, project managers, engineering, the answer is going to be slightly different for everybody. However, there will be people that you'll be able to identify within your organisation who will benefit greatly from time savings and decision making and drill down data and graphical representations that will help them make better decisions. Do not forget to involve the IT department, clearly, because this is a clearly piece of software which will have an impact on the IT department. So make sure you have their buy-in, they understand how the tool is going to work and who's going to maintain the tool, and in effect the pros and cons, or how the tool is going to be managed internally. Then who else is going to actually have a great outcome from this? But lastly, make sure that the sponsor, when I say the sponsor, that you actually have, because it is a strategy enabling tool, fundamentally a resource allocation tool and a decision making tool. Now, who wants to deliver the strategy? Well, clearly the GM, the CEO, the managing director. So for them to have the buy-in to understand that this tool is a tool that will help deliver strategy, help deliver the return on investment that the shareholders, or help deliver the service that's required by the community if you're a not-for-profit. This is a tool that will help you actually deliver that. So it's important that it's understood. Now, what you need to understand, or what you need to make sure, is that you really cache and present the information in your business case in the light of what's in it for them. And those guys there, they're potentially the decision makers, whether it's the board or senior executives within the organisation. They'll look at your business case and they'll say, well, how's this actually going to improve what I do? So in answering those questions about the who's and whys, and then presenting that information, well, think about, well, how do I present that information where it is a great proposition for those making the final decision?
Thanks, Chris. And I just wanted to throw in a top tip here of my own sort of experience and observations, and that is try not to be blinkered around what's important to you. Back to Chris's slide around what's in it for them. We want to frame this business case around things that are important and things are measured by other people. For example, it might be the CIO who is being measured this current year on digital transformation. How does your business case help him or her achieve that? So just don't blinker it. We see a lot of blinkering around finance and business cases using finance type terminology and solving finance problems. We just want to broaden that because obviously, as Chris has said, we're trying to introduce a strategic tool here for the rest of the organisation. And a bit of a story I had with one of my customers directly is the CFO desperately wanted to automate their budgeting forecasting for lots of excellent reasons, but through his research knew that the CEO actually had a big pain around labour utilisation and planning for that, and also getting the visibility he needed for that. So that is what he ended up doing the business case for in order to get that technology into the business. And so as a second project, he's now automating his budgeting and forecasting.
Now, in respect to the whys, if we frame the why around strategic delivery or execution of strategy, and fundamentally the execution of strategy requires the allocation of resources to the right areas to deliver the value chain that's required, whether it's from sales and marketing, through to product development, through to service deliveries, through to after sales, whichever it may be, however you deliver your value within your organisation, ultimately we need to allocate the resources and understand the capacity of each area to deliver our organisational goals. Why do we need this tool? Well, the tool is all about delivering strategy in line with our goals, our organisational goals. So in doing that, what would happen if we actually had a tool which helped us deliver the strategy, or helped us optimise our use of resources? Well, our customer satisfaction would improve. Potentially we'd have better inventory management, better supply chain, improved operating margins, improved service capability, and even optimising the use of assets and production utilisation. So having this tool which gives us this business intelligence that helps us make better decisions ultimately leads to better outcomes for the organisation. And that's the big why. That's why we're doing it.
I'm going to give an example of one of our not-for-profit clients, and it's just to seed some ideas around framing the value of an improvement in the way that other organisations seek improvement, other parts of the organisation seek improvement. And in this particular business user story or customer story, they ended up getting a benefit around parts of the organisation requesting the analysis that in the past they couldn't quickly respond to. And therefore, that impacted the decisions that those people that requested it made. They couldn't make those decisions quickly. Whereas this technology now that they bought in to solve specific, speed, agility, participation problems that I originally mentioned, in fact, has delivered this more critical outcome for the decision makers to be agile and make decisions quickly.
Now, in managing the objections, as I mentioned earlier on, it doesn't matter what kind of business case has been put forward. Often there is some sort of objection to it or some questioning to the need for the investment. However, as Rebecca has alluded to, what we need to do in these circumstances is that we need to flip things on their head. So, for example, a typical objection would be the internal time to actually deliver the project, and do we actually have the resources internally to help us out or to actually help us deliver the project? And one of the answers to that is that actually, no, this tool actually creates more time. Why? Because we're spending less time mucking around with spreadsheets. The rollover processes are quicker. There's more information all into one place. There's this history which is kept, again, in one piece of software which actually helps you compare year on year and each quarter's forecast. The rollover process is a lot quicker. So when people talk about, oh, well, look, yeah, maybe we don't have the internal resources. Well, actually, we're going to create more resources. We're going to create more time, I should say. And in terms of resources, in terms of, well, how much is this project going to cost? Well, do you know what? This project potentially could save us lots of money, improve our efficiency, improve our utilisation, improve our decision-making, which means it would actually create more resources. So some of those objections, what you want to, the strategy you want to take is to actually flip those objections on its head, to have a look at what the underlying problem is and think about the positive aspect of it.
Just a couple more tips along the way from myself, and just a bit of a reminder that a business case, whether it's a formal one or an informal process at your organisation, is an exercise in persuasion quite commonly. And you've got to remember that sometimes it's not just about business, it's about humans interacting with one another, and we just need to remember and check ourselves that we need to clearly communicate value that in a way that other people understand it and other parts of the organisation understand it. Make it obvious. Describe how the benefits will deliver value in terminology and language and perspective that they understand, and connect those values. So just a bit of a tip around the fact that we've got to remember we're doing a persuasive exercise here.
Now, the net benefit is clearly the payoff, less the cost. Now, the payoffs can be in many areas, and it will be different for each organisation, depending on how your cost structures are and how your value chain is created. However, fundamentally, if we can improve our inventory holdings, if we can improve our cost of sales, asset utilisation, and get some one-off gains potentially from debtor management or supply management, these are all areas where you can potentially quantify and have in your case as part of the benefits. And clearly, offsetting that is some of the initial investments, which is in infrastructure, licensing, and so on, consulting services to implement the tool. Now, to give you an example, we've got templates and we've got frameworks that we can help you quantify the benefits with. However, to be succinct in this presentation, because we've only got a certain amount of time, but this is just a very simple presentation of where and how you may quantify your net benefit. Now, what's really important is that percentage improvement is very achievable, because, for example, if that percentage improvement there was 10%, people might say, well, actually, that's not achievable, and then your whole case falls over a little bit. But I won't go through every single line item here. However, let's just say cost of sales. Let's say this business or this organisation turns over $30 million a year, 50% margin, and it has cost of sales of $15 million a year. And because we've got this business intelligence tool, we've got predictive analytics, we've got great graphical representations that helps us make better decisions and plan better going forward, perhaps we can improve our cost of sales by 2%. And what does that mean in an organisation which has cost of sales of $15 million? Well, that's an annual saving of $300,000 a year. Overhead expenses. Potentially, if we've got clearer information and we've got great ability to forecast our costs, drill down into the detail of where and how and when we're spending our money to make better decisions, potentially we could make a 2% improvement in our overhead allocation of costs. Again, that's $140,000 saving in a $7 million business. But the other things I'll touch on is staff utilisation or asset utilisation. They are, a typical staff member might have about 1,400 of workable hours in a particular year. Now, if we were to make a staff member, our ability to have a staff member be more efficient because we've taken some time away from them, we've helped them make better decisions about the allocation of their resources and the allocation of their time because we've got better information, and we'll to improve their time by 2%. Potentially, that's a $60,000, depending on how many staff members you have, a $60,000 benefit. Then there could be one-off gains from inventory management and so on. So in this particular example, if we were to add all the gains up, the one-off gains and the annual gains, there is potentially, over 5 years, a $3 million saving or $3 million EBIT contribution. So now the investment in this software application, the tool that's going to help you deliver strategy, will be a fraction of that cost. So this is potentially, now it's going to be different for everybody, but this is potentially how you can frame the net benefit of the investment and your ability, the organisation's ability to deliver strategy.
That's great, Chris, and I commonly see business cases where there's a bit of a lack of quantification around the benefit, but all the costs are put in there. So an organisation never gets really presented with a net benefit. So a great tip and important factor to consider when you're doing your business case is we don't just need a cost section, we need a net benefit section, basically. So just a little bit more reminders. And at this point in time, once you've done all your research around your who and your what and your why, there's no harm, and often it's a good thing, is actually just to question the original what you want to do. Like the CEO example I gave, he had started out researching and putting together a business case for budgeting and forecasting to automate, the spreadsheets and budgeting and forecasting, but his what actually ended up being, as an initial project, a project around utilisation of labour, and that was his best chance of success. It was his ability to make an impact on the organisation, but at the same time he got what he needed as well. He got the technology that he could then later on use to achieve some of his goals. Another thing I see in terms of the project planning aspect that you need to do in a business case typically is just some little tips that I've seen and seen our customers suffer with, is don't let the business as usual be the cause of project delays or project failure. What I mean by that, it's you typically still have a day job to do, and you need to do that well, and at the same time you're trying to do this project well as well. So when you're doing your business case planning, think about the resourcing that's required in order to make it a success. And also start small. I know we've talked about, Chris and I have encouraged you to think more broadly around the opportunity. It doesn't mean we're suggesting go out and do the whole thing at the same time, not at all, quite the opposite. Identify that initial what that's going to give you the biggest chance of success, and make it small. Make it no more than 3 months or 2 months, so that you're delivering something within a short time frame to the business. Then you're getting buy-in, and then you're getting the momentum and the ability then to move on to further projects. So we're sort of getting to the end now, but just a reminder, we started with a topic and we advertised a topic about automating budgeting and forecasting, but we're just sort of encouraging you to rethink that in terms of a strategy and look at more of it as a strategic business tool for benefit of the entire organisation. And Chris, did you just want to sum up that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So as we highlighted earlier, your business case is to create your business case. You research and frame your business case around these 5 key questions. And when you've distilled the information from these 5 key questions, you then present it which is in the following slide. You present it in a way which is nice and concise. So you answer those questions, you research those questions in regards to the who, what's and whys, and making sure that you deal with the objections and that you quantify the net benefit. Then you summarise your business case. Now, I'm sure some of the attendees will have their own structures in terms of presenting a business case to key decision makers, but as a high level, nice summary about why we're doing what we're doing, key reasons that we're doing it for, which is the proposal drivers, the evaluation of the options. Now, the beauty of PA is that we've got a portfolio of budgeting and forecasting tools and business intelligence tools so that we can actually help you evaluate which one is best for you. Then we ring fence the risks and make sure that we've handled the risks appropriately. We put together and put forward the EBIT net benefit contribution, and then clearly we sum it up with the recommendation of moving forward appropriately to make sure that we have this tool that helps us enable and deliver our strategy.
Excellent. So it's time for our next poll question. Okay, so we clicked in some responses. So as we're just trying to see and share what kind of challenges that you have been having in your organisation when it comes to a business case for budgeting forecasting, or for any, I guess, technology project that you're looking at. And it seems the majority, so well over 50% of the people challenge around working out that net benefit, and then after that, actually defining what the value to the organisation. So thank you very much for your participation there, but most of you, almost 60%, the biggest challenge is working out the net benefit. So nearly to the end, nearly to some questions that we can get to. I just wanted to highlight, and we've got a bit of an offer for you too as well in terms of assisting you with the planning side of your business and your business case. There's all these different things that we highlight around helping organisations with their planning are things that we can assist you with. So whether it's a meaningful budget and drivers and assumptions, which we've talked about, or a clear organisation visibility, these are the types of things that we help with the different pieces of technology that we work with. So a little bit of time for questions, which is great. Let me just open them up.
It looks like there's a question there, Rebecca. What is the budgeting project likely to cost?
Well, that's always an interesting question. So at the end of the day, it is a little bit of a how long's a piece of string. So my advice there is to actually cut off a piece of string and a certain measurement and use that to go and do your market research. And what I mean by that, I'm not trying to be silly, but what I mean by that is to define a framework so that you can go and talk and have a consistent conversation. If there's 3 particular solutions that you're interested in, just make sure you're having a consistent conversation with each 3. So you might decide to, work out potentially how many users that you might want and what kind of things those users need to do. That's something that's, pretty easy for a software company to address. And then put a framework around the kind of scope that you're looking for as an initial project. So you might want to do your P&L planning and your payroll planning, or you might want to do a reporting project around utilisation analysis and planning. So all I'm saying is create a bit of a framework, a set scope, so that you're having a consistent conversation with each solution that you're looking at, and that way you're less likely to end up comparing sort of apples with oranges, because that's the biggest challenge, I think, when you're going out and looking at costs. So it's difficult for me to tell you how much it will cost, because it really does depend on a number of factors, but at the same time, if you create, I guess, a consistent requirement that you can talk to the different vendors about, at least then you've got some comparable information. How's that, Chris?
Yep, okay, there's a couple of questions here. Another one, how long will it take to implement?
Depends on the scope, but really what I would encourage you to do is create that framework around what you're trying to achieve and talk to organisations like PA, for example. We have a number of different technologies, and get their insight into or input into what that timeline is, what they, how long they recommend that would take, or would it take. But my biggest point is don't make it too long. So we like to see projects that are sort of 2 to 3 months in length. And if your requirement is too big to deliver that in, then we want to sort of chunk that down and maybe phase that a bit so that we've got at least some outcomes in that time frame. So I would plan around having an initial project that's not more than 3 months. Hopefully that answers that question.
There was a question about the products. We've actually got a portfolio of products, haven't we, Rebecca?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I see that question there. So today was deliberately more about sharing just some knowledge and insight to help our community of companies. Less about, telling you about specific technology, but PA does have a couple of different planning technologies and then BI technologies as well. So we're happy to take that offline and talk to you about that, but we didn't really want to, cover that off today. Again, it was more about the knowledge sharing. So, Chris, there was another question about the average time to implement, and I would answer that again of sort of keeping it with the 2 to 3 months and keeping an initial, if it's a budgeting project, keeping that initial scope within that time frame. Okay. Those of you that currently work with Professional Advantage, your account manager is likely going to follow up with you anyway. Feel free to reach out at any time if you've got some more questions. We're more than happy to answer them. So, yeah, we'll follow up, or you can get in contact with us in advance if you'd like to. So, thank you very much for your time. We finished almost a minute ahead of time, so that's some sort of record. Enjoy the rest of your day, week. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.